This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. Well, hello. It is great to be here with you today, Women at Halftime podcast. I just love putting these shows together and have such a wonderful guest today. I'm so excited, especially this time of year as we are at the end of this year, looking at one of our favorite subjects, habits. How about that? I have Linda Fogg Phillips with me, and I'm so excited. A couple of announcements, and we are just coming at the end of the holidays, but of course you can keep celebrating all you want. My new book is out, of course, The Summit, and if you've not gotten one yet, would love you to do that. But my Hero Mountain Summit, HeroMountainSummit.com, is a 5-month kind of a journey to your own Hero Mountain that we go through. The steps of Hero Mountain, which one of the steps is habits. So I'm so glad, very, very timely today, when we talk about mindset, skills, all of those things, really to get you moving forward in your life. So, but Linda, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I've been so looking forward to this. So
yes,
I'm excited to get going. Thank you.
I know. It's just, you're an excited person. I want to start with a little bit of your background, and I hate to give these long introductions. Sometimes when I'm interviewed, they do these long intros. It's like, I want you to introduce yourself, because I was so impressed. You have 8 children, and it looks like most of them are launched now correctly, which is a big thank you as a mom, I think. And you've been in this business for a long time. You have your own program going, and you've got, your graduate degrees. Tell us a little bit about why you got into this area to begin with.
I love this question simply because I got into this area initially out of necessity. Mm-hmm. And I started work. As you said, I have 8 children. I spent 26 years raising my children. All I ever wanted to be was a full-time mom. That's all I ever thought that I would be. And now I was completely fulfilled by that. As you know, being a mom is the hardest and most demanding responsibility or job on the face of the earth. It's also the most rewarding. And yes, my children are older and what you would call launched, but I'm still their mom. They still need my help. I still interact with them daily.
Don't they? I mean, it never quits.
Yeah, I thought, when they're on their own, good. No, it's just complicated. But there was a point in time where, and this, I think your audience, our listeners will relate to this, but there was a point in time where my youngest was 11 and I could see the downward slope of parenting and being in that role and looking forward to doing other things. And my husband got quite ill. And he also, we had a home building business, and our home building business at that time was starting to be affected by the recession. And I had skills, I had a college degree, and I thought, well, I can bridge the gap here while we're getting back up on our feet. I thought it was temporary, but as you can see, it turned into a career. And it's a career that I will be very transparent that God put me on. It's a path that he put me on. And I know that very specifically through some experiences in my life where what I'm doing now is really the purpose for, my purpose is my family and my children. My purpose also is to give people hope and evidence that they can change. And that habits is not a scary word. But when I started was in the position that I needed to work, my brother, BJ, who is a behavioral scientist at Stanford University, Dr. BJ Fogg, he brought me in to do some research and study at that time in online behavior. And we wrote a book called Facebook for Parents. It's quite outdated now, but this was back in 2009 and 2010. And we were really helping people, primarily parents, understand and navigate this new frontier called Facebook and online behavior. I knew that was a temporary spot for me. I learned so much during that time. But then, moving into habits became an opportunity for me as BJ was developing the Tiny Habits method. And it was an opportunity that I knew was the right path for me to take then. That's a long explanation to how I'm where I'm at now, but it is a divinely, in my opinion, a divinely inspired path for me. And I take that very seriously and with a lot of reverence and feeling very honored to be in this position.
I like that because I feel many people are at that point of, what is my real purpose? And I want to live my life with significance. And especially halftime is officially, if you look on the internet, one of our greatest sources of research, right? Internet just tells us everything, and you can laugh at that one.
It's true. It's true.
Oh, no, it's really, you really have to do the source work. That's why I really enjoyed this book, because it was so well sourced. But there is a real focus on significance and how you want to make an impact. And one of the biggest regrets people have when they finally get on that final train home, as we say, or graduate at the end of life, is that they've never, fulfilled some of their dreams, or never lived out what they felt would be purposeful and significant, leaving the world something. And I think it's really important to us to listen to that voice. And so that's exciting, because you just, even meeting you personally, like I did actually fairly recently, as of this, last summer. But it was, you were so excited about what you do, and still so motivated. And you've been with Tiny Habits for how many years now, Linda?
Since 2011. BJ designed the method at the end of 2010, tried it out, played with it a little bit. And then when he realized how impactful it was,
right,
that's when he said, hey, and at that point in time, I was in a position where I knew I needed to make a shift out of the social media online behavior.
Right.
I'm not even really sure I want to acknowledge this or admit this, but I was a consultant for Facebook for many of those years.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It was fascinating. I learned so much through that experience. I was an outside consultant. And to give you a little bit of how that landscape looked at that time, they only had 2,500 employees, and only one of them had a child that was 13 years or older.
Wow.
And so I was the more seasoned voice, where they'd bring me in once a month to work with them and as a consultant. And it was baffling to me how these young kids that really hadn't yet experienced life were making decisions that impacted all of us. That's another story for another day. But I knew that path was a short-term path, but it was a path that really launched me into really being curious and studying human behavior. And when the opportunity came to continue to work with BJ in the field of habit formation, I knew that's where I belonged. I knew that was really my purpose. And the purpose goes even deeper than just habits. It really is about helping people regain hope, hope in themselves, hope in their future, hope in their abilities to really create and design the lives that they want and the relationships that they want, not with just themselves, but with others as well.
Well, that's such an important part. In fact, because this book, The Summit, is an allegory, but the character has to wear this band of hope and cannot get to her summit without it. And she has a guide, but even when she loses it one time, she starts losing hope and starts losing her purpose, starts losing her way. And we have to have hope and in our life. So I think you are giving people hope in what you do. That's a strong, strong messaging. And I think habits do that as they build on each other too. It just adds such encouragement to our life. And it doesn't have to be hard. And that's the reason I really like Tiny Habits. So let's go into a little bit, because we're going to go into the method. And you are an absolute expert on this. I'm going to let you explain. But I've read the book, was fascinated by the book. And I think it's just so well written. And I'll put all the links. I always write an article with every one of my shows like this, especially when I have a guest. So you will have all the links to Linda and to the book. But explain what Tiny Habits are. What's that method and the behavior change?
Yeah, the Tiny Habits method, if I were to share that, what is Tiny Habits in the soundbite, the way that I would respond is Tiny Habits is a breakthrough method that gives people hope and evidence that they can change. And there's a systematic process in the Tiny Habits method. Now, a lot of people have copied BJ's. Some people have given him credit. Some people have passed off his work as their own, which is unfortunate. But there is a scientific process and research behind the Tiny Habits method that proves that this is the most effective way to create new habits and change behavior in the entire world, at least at this point in time. And the method consists of taking an existing behavior. We call that an anchor moment, and using that existing behavior to prompt a new behavior that you want to create as a habit. That's what we call the tiny behavior. And then reinforcing that behavior with an emotion, with a positive emotion. That's what we call an instant celebration. Now, a couple of the key factors here is that the tiny behavior that you're trying to create as a habit needs to be so tiny that it does not require willpower or motivation to complete. And the secret sauce to the method is learning how to tap into your emotions, how to reinforce that behavior with a positive feeling. It's not a reward. This is where a lot of people do get confused, is they use a reward as, to help them establish a habit. Rewards are great, but they're typically looked at as a gratification or a long-term, something that you're looking for. Like, if I lose 10 pounds, I'm going to go get myself a new pair of jeans. That's a reward. But in that sense, it doesn't create habits. It's the instant attachment of a positive emotion. And that celebration piece is often very misunderstood.
I'm going to have you explain that because, of course, I've read Power of Habit, and I loved that book. I loved Atomic Habits. That's a great book because they're easy to read, and both of them quote tiny habits. But the celebration is a little bit different than especially with Power of Habits. Because there's a difference there because he really works on this reward instead of more of that celebration. So why don't you separate that just a little bit, as you said, celebration. How do we celebrate? And this might be a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it's right along what we're talking about.
Well, and this learning how to celebrate, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent for just a second, Deborah, and I'll come back to what a celebration is, and then I'll bring this tangent in. I can honestly say that learning how to celebrate has changed my life. It's a lot like a mindset, learning how to control your thoughts, learning how to congratulate yourself or acknowledge when you're doing things well, or even these little tiny successes. It is a habit. Learning how to celebrate is a way, it's your mindset, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of really keeping yourself positive and being able to control your outwardly expressions as well as your inwardly expressions. And as you know, when we feel good, we are more productive and our relationships are much better. So the celebration piece is just reinforcing a behavior with anything that makes you feel good. And there's a lot of different ways that you can celebrate. In fact, we have a list of 102 tiny habit celebrations. In the back of the Tiny Habits book, there's a list of 100 ways to celebrate and feel shine. We say feel shine because it makes you feel good when you celebrate. But in essence, what it really is learning how to release endorphins and dopamine on demand, and you attach that positive feeling to a tiny behavior. Some of my celebrations are things such as saying to myself, good job, or you did it, or you're moving forward, or way to go. Another one of my celebrations that I absolutely love is on my screensaver of my phone. I have an adorable picture of two of my granddaughters. And I was going to pull it up here, but I don't think I can't get my phone to turn on. But I have my screensaver. I have a picture of two of my granddaughters hugging each other. And I look at that picture, I pull that up, went to reinforce a behavior that I'm wanting to create as a habit because it pulls up a positive feeling. And I attach that positive feeling to that behavior. And that makes me want to do that behavior again and again. And so that's, when you say, well, what are some celebrations? It can be a cheer. It can be reflecting on a memory. It can be something as simple as congratulating yourself. But as long as it pulls up a positive emotion and a positive feeling, that is an appropriate celebration to attach to that behavior.
That's so wonderful to be able to hear that that sort of definition. And as we see all of these, one of my pet peeves is, everybody getting a trophy for something, it's just it's like, you want to make sure it's associated with something you've truly done. And this celebration, we don't celebrate our own nearly enough. We want to celebrate others, especially, we were talking about being a mom, and dads listen to this too. You're the same, and many of you are very much a part of the parenting. And you're always, celebrating your kids, you're celebrating what they're doing. But celebrating what you are doing too, those little steps. And there's days that things do not go as planned and as you want. So you need to be able to celebrate those little things, especially as an entrepreneur. Any entrepreneur listening to this, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And you need to celebrate the little steps and saying, I got that new project done. I got that web page completed, and now all the links work. Little things like that. I was just going through this morning thinking about putting, as I'm updating some of my products, I have so much product, and you find those little things and you need to celebrate those. Say, I can move on to the next little project now because now I can celebrate that. I think that's such a wonderful step, and it's not overwhelming People get overwhelmed, just so overwhelmed.
Well, and the byproduct of celebrating is what we call success momentum, is it helps you feel successful. And that feeling of success helps propel you forward. It helps you get you unstuck sometimes when you feel like, oh, I just can't get out of this rut or this mindset or get anything done. And then when you start celebrating, it really helps give you that. It's sort of like it propels you. It helps you move forward.
I really like that because people are, when they say, how do you get unstuck? I'm asked that a lot. How do you get unstuck? Well, you have to start moving, first of all. You can't stay in the same place. And as you do those, tiny little steps, and it needs to be within your own goals and with what you decide to do. Nobody can really decide to do that for you, or you can't, you've really got to own it of what you are doing. So, well, you've talked about kind of what is within those tiny habits. I mean, if you really want to go into depth, you really do need to get the book. It's very, very good with a lot of the illustrations. And I was attracted to it because I had read it in other books. And this is where the actual resources, or the research is in Tiny Habits. It's done by a researcher and not just a writer.
I'm going to interject here too. Sorry, Deborah. One thing that's interesting about the Tiny Habits book is this all original research. It's all BJ's work. It's not other people's work.
Exactly.
Power of Habit and Atomic Habits are great books because they really have helped people look at habits differently and look at them in a positive way. But, that's a compilation of other people's work and research. And I'm not disking that at all. That's great.
Right.
But, the Tiny Habits book it's all of BJ's work, it's all his research, and there's science behind that.
And that's really what drew me, because it's so well sourced, because it was his research. He has the numbers. He's not just quoting something. It's one of my pet peeves too, on people quoting numbers. And, my husband's been in finance, and I tell you what, you can make numbers anything you want, you want. I believe, and it's like, well, where's that source? And they've done the math wrong. But this was, this is really well, because he's actually done, the actual, research on it and tests the whole thing. So it's interesting. It doesn't get so much to where it's a scientific book to it. It's easy to read because of all the illustrations. That's what's easy.
Yeah. We've tried to make it user friendly. When I say we, of course, BJ wrote the book. We've worked together professionally in this aspect of Tiny Habits for 10 years now, since it's been developed.
Right.
And it really, it's a user-friendly book. And that was our intent, is to make it user-friendly and doable, and to give people new insights and new approaches that they could do right now and be effective and successful with.
And I think that's a really important, and we'll go on to the other types a little, that you've got some other types of habits that he's branched off into. But you've talked about how it's changed your life, but you work with a lot of clients. How are these, as we look forward to this new year? And it's exciting. I always get excited with the New Year's, but some people are going, you know what? I do those goals every year, and I can, all we need to do is look at gym memberships, people signing up, and they drop off after the first month or two, or maybe the last 3, but they don't do it regularly. And that's why it's important for you to have a little skin in the game. I'm paying for this trainer. I'm going to show up. So, but how can this really change your year ahead? If you put in, even listening to this and applying a couple of the things that you say, or, looking online, I would encourage people to go ahead and read the book, but they can read, there's blogs, there's articles, all of this around the Tiny Habits as well. But how can it change their life?
Well, what it does, and I'll share a couple of experiences with you as far as habits that I've implemented that have truly changed my life.
Good.
But as far as how does it change your life, it brings these goals into tiny actionable behaviors. And this is part of the challenges that we have, especially with New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. We try to make changes that are just too big and are not sustainable. They rely on willpower or motivation. And at some point in time, usually it's 10 days after the first of the year, we run out of that power, that motivation, or that willpower to keep that habit going. And that's where we start feeling like a failure. And that's really a damaging mindset to have, is, I just can't do this, or this just doesn't work. The Tiny Habits method helps you. We look at it as planting a little tiny seed, that little tiny behavior of that habit that you want to create to be an automatic habit, and allowing it to expand and grow to be a larger size. But the secret is starting off tiny, where it does not take that willpower or motivation. Let me give you an example of one of my clients. I had a client that wanted to walk 30 minutes every day after dinner. Now that's a great habit to create, but it's a big habit. And she was sedentary. And so I knew that, I was working with her as a personal trainer and a health coach. And I knew that I could amp her up and motivate her to do that for a little while, but it was not going to be sustainable. And so what we did is we used the tiny habits method, and we designed the tiny habit recipe to be, after I start the dishwasher, I will put on my walking shoes and celebrate. As you notice, that anchor moment was really specific. Instead of after dinner, we got really specific with, well, what happens after dinner that can act as a prompt? And so we identified starting the dishwasher. And we made the behavior of walking for 30 minutes tinier by the approach, what we call a starter step. It's an approach where it just gets you ready to do the bigger behavior. And her response to me, she said, well, is that all I need to do? I said, yeah, but if you want to walk, go ahead and walk. But this is what we're training as an automatic behavior right now. She goes, oh, that's easy. I can do that. That's the attitude that we want to instill, is helping you create those little tiny starter steps or scaled back versions where you go, oh, that's easy. I can do that. She started walking consistently 30 minutes after dinner every single day within 10 days. So it took root. She felt good about that. And she allowed herself to do the bigger behavior, consistently. So it's sort of like a hack, but it's a hack that really works, and it helps people feel successful. Now, when I say that tiny habits has changed my life, there's a tiny habit that I've incorporated now, probably about for 9 years, at least 9 years. And it's called the Maui Habit. And you probably read about that in BJ's book. But the Maui Habit goes like this. And the habit is, after my feet hit the floor in the morning, I will say it's going to be a great day and celebrate. I was at a point in my life where I was really struggling mentally and emotionally. Unfortunately, I did lose my 20-year-old son a couple of years, in 2008. And that was a struggle. I became very apathetic. I still had 7 children at home, but it was hard. It was a struggle. Every day was a struggle at that point. And when I started working with BJ, and this is before the Maui Habit even had a name, he said, hey, Linda, why don't you try this tiny habit? Because he knew that I was really fighting depression and fighting feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. And so I said, why not? It's not going to hurt. It doesn't take much time. It's not going to cost me anything. All right. He's a pretty smart guy. I'll try it. And so as I started practicing that habit, what ended up happening really surprised me. Within easily 3 days, I started seeing the world differently. It moved me out of the mindset of a victim into the mindset of a victor. Small shift, but huge results. And as a result, I started my day off with a win. This is a habit that I've done ever since. I start my day off with a win by saying it's going to be a great day and celebrating. It helps me identify and really put out there an intention that I'm going to do everything I can to make it a great day. And that has proven to be very successful for me and very helpful. And I give BJ all the credit for encouraging me to do that habit, because it really set me on a path of realizing that I can control my day. That's a choice, instead of letting my day control me. And that has really helped me to show up better as a mom, show up better as a wife, show up better as a neighbor, as a professional, just all the way around. It's had a positive impact on me.
I want to say to every listener, right now, this is the reason I do these podcasts. This is the reason I work hard on even making the video now and making some of this. I work extremely hard at my business, but I want listeners to move ahead. I want you moving from being a victim to a victor, because there's a lot of people I have seen, and they're going to stay in the same place, and they're going to be in that victim mentality. And I don't usually, if you want to work with me, I do not work with victims. I just say, you need to move on. You need to work on those habits. If you're willing to work, I will work with you, at least to say, no, I want to move from this point to this point. So that mindset of wanting to grow, and sometimes to want to grow, you have to put your feet down on the ground and you have to celebrate and say, I'm going to decide to celebrate today because I don't feel like it. Yeah. And I'm going to decide to, put my tennis shoes on because I don't feel like it. And so when that becomes just that tiny little yes moment, I think it adds so much. It adds momentum. It's like the trout starting to swim. Okay, now they're really swimming upstream because they've got that momentum going, and they've got other trout right by them now. They're all moving ahead. So you've got to start. So those are great points. Thank you, Linda, for sharing your own, own story too on that. So, well, let's see. We've got this instant celebration. I wanted to make sure I got through a couple of things that were in this book too, because you mentioned, I loved this one, the pearl habits. Now that was really interesting. Anyone who's been to Hawaii, they've got pearls on every single little selling stand somewhere because there's pearls. But the process of that, but tell us how that relates with the pearl habits.
This I'm so excited to talk about pearl habits. This is where I should start. I'm just so excited because this really, truly, and I know this is the purpose. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing and the work that I'm doing right now. This is also the reason why God has allowed me to have many challenges in my life and to learn and grow and to give people an opportunity to see that they can do it. They can make it. And when I say challenges, as I mentioned in 2008, we lost my 20-year-old son to an accidental Oxycontin overdose. It was devastating. A year after that, I had a life-threatening horse accident that should have killed me, but fortunately it didn't. And that was my opportunity for God to speak to me and say, hey, your life has just been saved and you better figure this out because you have work to do. And, that's just taken me a few years to figure out, okay, what's the purpose? And this is it, the pearl habits. On the tail end of my horse accident, and as I mentioned, we had a home building business here in Las Vegas, and the recession just took us out of the game. It was a small family-run home building business, and it wiped us out. As a result, we lost our 5-acre horse ranch. We lost our business. We had to lay off family members and friends that worked with us. And in the midst of all that, my husband was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 58.
Oh my!
And that was where it's like, okay. Before he was diagnosed, I thought, I'll just need to work. I need to do something temporarily to help bridge the gap. Once he was diagnosed, it's like, this gap is never going to end. It's permanent. And as I went through the process of navigating those challenges, the Tiny Habits method was my lifeline. The Tiny Habits method was really what allowed me to create coping skills to navigate through these challenges in a manner that served me better and my children and my husband better as well. And that's where Pearl Habits emerged from, is using the Tiny Habits method in that process. In the Pearl Habits method, the anchor moment, meaning the prompt that prompts the behavior, typically is an irritant or a difficult situation or a challenge. Very much like in the inside of an oyster, the way a pearl is formed is by that grain of sand. Now, we have grains of sand every single day in our lives. Sometimes the grains are big, sometimes they're little. Nonetheless, we have a choice. We can allow those grains of sand to irritate us or to cause us to shrivel up and die, or we can start putting layers and layers and layers of mother of pearl around that grain of sand and end up with a gem, a thing of beauty, a pearl, a gift that we give to others in the world. This is where this is how we settle on the name of this method, the Pearl Habits method. As BJ was writing the book, he asked me, he said, hey, Linda, can you send me all the recipes that you've created around Pearl Habits? So the recipes that you've used, the Tiny Habit recipes in your life. And I had over 40 of them as I started to write them down and sent them to him. And what I realized is the Pearl Habits method was what really helped me create resilience. It helped me create those coping skills to overcome many of the challenges that would have really put me in a state of non-functional behavior or just wanting to literally just give up or to quit. And again, one of those habits, I'll share a couple of Pearl Habits that really have helped me. As my husband started to can't even talk, to decline, to deteriorate is what I was trying to say. Real life, right? Anyway, as he started to decline with his health and with his cognitive abilities, as Alzheimer's continued to set in, he got to the point where he could not dress himself. He couldn't bathe himself. He couldn't feed himself because the brain his body, he was a triathlete, so his body was healthy, but his brain was not. And as a result, it affected his daily activities. And so it became, I don't want to say demanding, because that's not really how I looked at that, but there were a lot of things that I needed to do to help him in addition to continuing to work and support my family. And I became, again, feeling really overwhelmed. It's like, man, I just can't do this. And there was a habit that I designed, I call it a pearl habit, even though the anchor moment's not an irritant. But during that time where he was declining pretty quickly, and I could see that I was getting really depressed, or just really discouraged is a better word, I thought, okay, Linda, you need to celebrate throughout the day. You need to have a reason to release those endorphins and dopamine to keep a positive mindset. Because I knew that if I went down, I was taking everybody with me, essentially. The mom is the thermometer of the household. So the habit that I designed, and this is going to sound funny, but it works, and this is another one I still do today, was after I flush the toilet, I will think of one person that has made a difference in my life that I'm grateful for, and then celebrate that. The reason I chose that anchor moment, flushing the toilet, is because we all use the bathroom 7 to 10 times a day. So that's a very reliable, consistent anchor moment. And I knew that would give me an opportunity to do a behavior that I could then celebrate. The reason I chose a gratitude habit is, as we know, and science proves this too, is when we're expressing gratitude, we see the world differently. And it really helps us acknowledge that, life is hard sometimes, but there's a lot of things to be grateful for. For example, last week, my catalytic converter got stolen out of my Sequoia, something that's happening.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, something that's happening. 9 months. Like, oh my goodness. But here again, because I have been able to create habits of positivity and a positive mindset in my life, and it's an irritation. I'm aggravated. I still don't have, you can't even find catalytic converters right now. So I have to wait to get my car fixed. So every time I think about that, my response, instead of feeling angry, because that doesn't serve anybody, it certainly doesn't serve me, the thought that I have is, well, at least they left the rest of my car.
That is a great attitude. You really have to, because life is like that, isn't it, Linda? It is just so like that. You've got to look at, okay, so is there anything positive in this?
Yeah, so here again, at least they left the rest of my car, because I have had a whole car stolen before. It was like,
I know. The rest of my car. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, but here again, this is how we can design who we are and how we show up. This is how we can design by intention, a positive mindset and a positive environment.
Yeah.
Another pearl habit that has served me well for a period of time, I obviously don't practice this one anymore because I don't need to, but we did end up putting my husband in a memory care center because it was not safe for him to be at home any longer. Yeah. And that was the right decision. That was a really hard decision and a really hard move to make. But in the process of doing that, and as I go visit him every day, here again, it was like, man, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe I'm coming to visit my husband, who is the youngest out of all these elderly people in this memory care center. And it got to the point where I stopped going for a while because it was too painful for me. It would bring up pain. I would leave visiting Brent, go sit in my car and just dissolve into tears because it's like, this has to be a bad dream. And I stopped seeing him because it was, of course, it's all about me, right? Because it was too hard. It just pulled up so much pain. And then I realized, you can create a pearl habit from this experience and change the situation. And so the pearl habit that I created was after I leave Avenir, which was where Brent was at, after I leave Avenir and sit in my car, I will bow my head and give thanks for those that care for him.
Oh.
That completely changed that experience for me. And of course, I would celebrate that. I would attach a positive emotion. But that changed the experience for me. It was still hard, but it made it more of a positive experience for me because I brought gratitude into the picture. It also helped me during the time that I was there visiting him to be full of gratitude and express that to those that were there caring for him and when I couldn't fulfill that responsibility or that opportunity in my life. So that's a pearl habit where you take a difficult situation, an irritant, and attach a behavior to it that allows you to create beauty out of that irritant or beauty out of that pain. And I'm not a big PMA person, but I am a person that says, you know what, we can design how we live, we can design how we function, we can design how we interact with ourselves and others.
That is such a great illustration. And I think it's very timely for those at the halftime of life and at the second half, going into your second half, because many have a spouse that are going to go through that. My father-in-law lived 5 years with dementia, ended up not knowing who anyone was, and they had an in-home care, which was helpful, but they had to have care, and it becomes just overwhelming to be able to care for those. And what a great attitude with that, because it's you've lost somebody special in your life. They're not the same. They're just a different, they're not there anymore. And you grieve. So you were going through your own process of grief. And listen to your story about the catalytic converter. I laughed because I had not remembered this in a long time. We had this Suburban. I drove it to like 200,000 miles. We drove it all because we had 3 boys, with big feet. I did not have 8 kids, thankfully, but we had 3 babies, and they had the big feet, just like my husband. So, but it got stolen one time when my son was driving it, and he hadn't put the big lock on it and stuff. And so he felt really bad. And we found it, someone just took it for a joyride. And so it had to have a new, they kind of what was it? The heater part, all of that stuff I had to have replaced. But they stole everything out, but they did not, I had music stuff in there. They did not steal my music books, Wow. I was doing some club work at that time to where you have these big music books that you bring. And I tell you, they are like gold. And they were still in there. I was so thankful. I didn't care about the speakers. I didn't care about anything else. I was just so thankful that I could replace everything else. So not the hours of my time putting those together again. So it just makes you have to look at those positive and then just look back and go, it happened. It just happened. When you think about that journey, what a journey there is. And you've gone through so much of that sorrow to be able to you've turned it into helping others, which is a wonderful thing. Well, I want to, what's next for you, first of all? And then I want to kind of give you a chance to kind of encapsulate. I think we got most of the things that we wanted to cover here because it's such an important part. And I want people to look at this as a real positive thing too, of looking forward to the new year and not dreading, it's a new year. What am I going to do? Like this year, am I going to be in the same place as last year? And this is a real way that you don't have to be in the same place. You can be in a different place and really powerfully as well. But what's next for you, Linda? And then I want you to kind of encapsulate a couple of your main takeaways here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, what's next for me is I am launching a Pearl Habits podcast. That will be launched. Yeah, I'm excited about it because I'm really highlighting not just my story and my experience, creating beauty and positivity out of trials and difficult situations, but other people's journeys as well and how they've come out on the other end, in essence, better than they started. And it's due to the habits and the skills that they have. And, what I really want to achieve by this podcast is letting people know that they too can survive these difficult situations. Yes. They too can come out better than the little grain of sand inside the oyster. They too can be the pearl. Right. But it takes some specific skills and it takes some specific methodologies and applications, which the Tiny Habits brings all together. I've seen a lot of people's lives transformed and changed as a result of using Tiny Habits and the Pearl Habits method. Cool. And like I said, I know that I would not be fulfilling my responsibility and my role in life right now with keeping that secret in my pocket and not sharing it with others. So that's what's next on the horizon for me. And I'm really excited about that.
That is exciting because I think people really relate to story. They relate to people's lives. And I feel like I've been very fortunate. I've not had to go through, thankfully, losing a son or anything like that. And my husband's still around. He's a former professional athlete, and he's going through his own mental mindsets of not being able to do everything he's wanted to do, physically. But that's minor. And when you're dealing with some of these big roadblocks in your life, and you are able to give people those steps to move ahead. So, well, if there were a couple things that you were going to kind of takeaways that you want to leave our audience with, what would that be that you want people to end this podcast saying, oh, this is what Linda said to finish off?
Well, first of all, I want them to know that they're not alone and that there are resources out there that can help them develop these kinds of skills and these habits that are going to better serve them and help them achieve what they want to achieve. In fact, we have a free 5-day program that we offer every single week of the year. We pair you up with one of our certified coaches. We don't charge anything for this because it's our way of giving back to the world at large. You can find that at tinyhabits.com/join. And that's one way to dip your toe into what the Tiny Habits method is and experience it for yourself. But what I would really like to leave our audience with is the feeling of hope that, yeah, you've got this. If I can do it, you can do it too. You've got the skills. You just need to uncover them, and you need to brush them off, and you need to practice them. You've got everything that it takes to go forth and create beauty and positivity in your life. We did end up losing my husband last summer, and that was, as a result of the Alzheimer's,
yes.
the result of that. And it happened pretty quickly. We knew that we would lose him. But here again, the skills of habit formation, of positivity, of being able to create a positive mindset for myself, and in turn for my children by my example or by the way that I interacted with them, is what has pulled us through that. Back to the Maui Habit, as I mentioned very early in our discussion today, as one question that comes up is, well, what if you know you're going to have a bad day? What do you do if you say it's going to be a great day? You're lying to yourself. And I'm very literal, so I don't do very well with, smoke and mirrors, especially when I try to fool myself. It just doesn't work for me. And after we lost Brent, we lost him in the middle of COVID. It was not COVID related, but everything was locked down.
Right.
And so we really couldn't have, and he was very well known in my community. So we really couldn't have the type of funeral that we would have wanted to have otherwise. But we were allowed to have a social distance viewing and a social distance funeral. And as we went into those 2 days, and me being very literal, knowing, well, those are not going to be great days. I'm not going to get up with my feet at the floor in the morning and say it's going to be a great day, because that's just not how it's going to be, knowing that was the case.
Right.
So I revised that habit to be after my feet at the floor in the morning. What I said is, I'm going to make it a great day for those that come to pay their respects for Brent. That little tweak and that little revision set my intentions for that day on focusing on acknowledging others and the role that they played in his life, instead of focusing on the poor me type of mindset that at that point in time I very much probably deserved or had the right to feel. But that's not how I wanted to be those days. As a result, those days ended up being great days for me and my children. Just really odd how that happened. But also as a result, I have had people, and it's been a year since he's been gone, but I have had people that still reach out to me, or whose path I now still cross, who did come to pay their respects, that share with me how uplifting that event was, or how uplifting it was to come to his funeral. And there's no doubt in my mind why. And so this is the power of the Tiny Habits method and the Pearl Habits method.
And it was your decision on your self-talk and your language. And I'm big on that. And how we need to change that language sometimes and hear it. We need to hear it ourselves, or write it, or experience it, so we can start living it. And that's why journaling is so important too. I just have all these little steps that we do, but I think, what a wonderful illustration that way. And through your really tough times that you are helping others. And that's exciting. I like hanging around those sort of people in my life, and I surround myself with those sort of people. And these are the people I like to interview. I don't always interview people because they're going to help me build my business. I interview people that are going to help my audience, period. That's it. I get a lot of requests. So I want people to move ahead in their life and move forward, and not stay in that same place, not stay stuck. So this is a way you can get unstuck and moving forward. And thank you. And I love the message of hope. Again,
thank you.
We've got to have it, and you've got to have it as a business owner. You've got to have it personally and spiritually, financially, all of those areas. It infiltrates every single area. And I just so appreciate, Linda, you being willing to be on, and I'm so glad I met you. It's just a thrill that you can be with our sort of technology. We can be in different states and be able to do something like this, and that people can actually see you as well, see your beautiful face. So thanks again, and thank you all who have joined us today. I really appreciate it. Join us next week. I am talking about self-accountability. Oh, what a wonderful topic for a new year, self-accountability. And that's right along the habits theme as well. But it's really how we need to have take track of or keep count of what we are doing too, and being honest with ourselves and not fooling ourselves for another year as it goes by, and not to be so hard on ourselves. That's important too. You can reach me anytime, womenathalftime.com, goalsforyourlife.com, Deborah Johnson Speaker.com, and of course the music. Sometimes I mention it last, but people go there first. djworksmusic.com. I put out a lot of music, musicals, doing publishing right now. So for things, I have a lot of products. So thank you again for all of you joining us today, Deborah Johnson, and I really look forward to being with you then next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson, signing off.